welcome to our office here. We're a full-service business and technology consulting firm headquartered here in Chicago. I lead our mobility practice, if you haven't met me before. We're always hiring mobile developers and other things. I know the other guys, Blue Metal, and everybody else is together, other groups here. So feel free to get hold of me or one of these other guys. Good looking here, or anybody else. I got to go get somebody else who's in the front door.
Okay, so we get started. I'm Travis. I'll be.
Do you want to say something about Blue Metal?
Of course. Yeah, well, actually.
Oh, you're going to. Okay, great.
But as was mentioned, today we're talking about testing with Xamarin and Test Cloud and Xamarin UITest. So this is a Xamarin slide, and we're not talking just about Test Cloud. There's other parts to this for both local and remote testing. So that'll be our topic for today. A little disclaimer: I have no idea how long this is going to take. I haven't actually run through this stuff, so it may go quick, it may go not so quick. So there's a bunch of other stuff we could probably talk about if this gets done faster than expected. Blue Metal, we're a Microsoft partner, headquartered out of Boston with offices in Chicago. Our recruiter here is and I'm the head of the mobility practice out of the Chicago area. So John kind of gets good enough. So we are sponsoring. We have a handful of our prizes for tonight. There's a long cold winter nights. Be a nice glass of bourbon. Anyway, off topic, Hockey app was acquired today. I thought it would be kind of fun to take a quick look before we get started at Hockey app. Have any of you looked at Hockey app? So for those of you who are not familiar with it, I'm going to switch out of the presentation and just show you how it looks. Essentially, similar to Test Flight, you can do Android and iOS distribution with Hockey app, and also do crash test and reporting. So we looked at Insights last meeting, and we talked a little bit about Insights for bug and crash reporting. Hockey app is similar, and so this will be integrated into Microsoft's App Insights. Is that right? App Insights. We're curious to see how they do that integration. So it's a little bit topical. Pretty clean thing. I believe you can sign up for a 30-day trial for it now if you want to check it out and play around with Hockey app. So they're headquartered out of Stuttgart, so they're very cool by default because they're out of Stuttgart, which is the coolest city in Germany. So great. So agree? I mean, it's agree, right? Quality for mobile is really, really important. So we probably can skip that one. It's hugely important. Crashes, and you can probably identify this as well. Crashes are probably the number one thing you see in App Store comments, that this app crashed, I hate it. And it's like the easiest thing to type, I guess, and so that's the number one thing. So it's really something that we all need to work very hard to avoid. This is somewhat of a daunting slide. In a sense, the number of devices we need to test for. So it almost exacerbates the problem. To only get to 75%, that's 134 devices for market share for North America. So it's a very large challenge for any developer or any organization trying to push out. And it's also somewhat difficult in the enterprise as well, with bringing your own device based on the profile for those that work in the enterprise space, trying to cover these various multiple kinds of devices. This isn't news to anyone. We need tools to help us. This is an interesting slide. What it says is, for each of these top September, this is a number of days this screenshot was taken since it was last updated. So you can probably all relate from your own experiences. The apps you love to use the most are the ones that are probably updated the most. Even Facebook, I think, we have a 2-week policy on releasing new versions. So it's not easy to do. Every time we add code or we change something, we have to test everything out, and it's like we need tools to help us do that. So the expectation is that apps work, they work well, and they're always updated. And this is kind of both kind of a hallmark of what a great app is, one that's constantly refreshed and updated. And also one that just works really well due to that process. It's kind of two mutual sides of it. So I thought that was a pretty interesting perspective. So in order to get there, I guess this is Xamarin would call it shifting left. So reducing the cycle time for code changes and getting them tested and out the door. The claim is 4 times faster with automated UI testing. So your mileage may vary, of course, but certainly what we should hopefully be able to show tonight is you get a lot of mileage out of this once you make the investment to do UI testing with Xamarin. So Test Cloud is really two-part. This is actually it's titled Test Cloud, but we're really talking about 2 different things here. There is Xamarin UITest, which is basically a library you do locally. You can run all your tests locally. You don't need to use Test Cloud. You can run your tests on a physical device. You can run them on your simulators and go through your tests that way. And then when you want to get more devices involved, then you can upload them to the cloud and run your tests there. So it's sort of like a 2-part process that we'll be showing. Creating your tests locally, validating, getting your tests in a place where you want them to be, running them, making sure they pass, fail the way you expect, and then shipping them off to Test Cloud for running them for real on physical devices, as many as you want to use. It's particularly good for both native and hybrids as well. One of the nice things about UITest is that you can, if you're writing a hybrid app, like you're using a web view, you can completely query the DOM and check out and see if certain elements are there or not there. So it's very useful for any kind of app like that that you're writing. So it's not just a native, like traditional kind of Xamarin Forms app or something that you normally would do. It'll work great for the web as well. And what can you do with it, by the way? Most of all this stuff you can do cross-platform. I think, if I'm not mistaken, pinch is an iOS-specific thing on UITest currently. So if you want to test pinching, it's a little bit different. But most of these are you're able to do through a cross-platform unit test or UITest. So all those kind of gestures are great. So swiping, all that stuff is available. There is integration if you're using Jenkins or some kind of CI environment to take builds and move them to Test Cloud. It's really kind of batch file based and driven, so you have a lot of options to do that to get Test Cloud automatically involved in your process. I'm not currently, well, I'll show you on the next slide. 100%. We haven't looked at the feedback. So this slide kind of applies from Test Cloud back to your source control. So maybe someone here might have some experience working with this, but there is kind of a feedback loop. So if tests fail, presumably, or you have issues with the test fail, communication back to your build environment or your ALM solution to create a work item or something for those errors is possible to do in Test Cloud. So that is a quick overview of Test Cloud. Onward. Thank you. So what does it look like? Basically, we're going to take, as an example, this guy, the Xamarin Forms mobile CRM sample. This is, you see it from the standard Xamarin Forms one, so I figured I'd just take this and then run this in Test Cloud. So this is a master detail page, basic app that has Google Maps and Apple Maps integrated with it. You can edit contact items and things like that with it. So this is the app that we're going to be looking at. And this is how it looks when you set up testing. You download it and install it, and that's probably readable enough. You'll see its organization, which probably isn't too interesting. And the first thing you want to do when you start doing UI testing is create a new project. And you just simply right-click, add, and then you add your project, and then an NUnit library project will be there. So right there I could say that the Xamarin UITest and the NUnit are kind of part of the same process. So it's an NUnit unit test with Xamarin UI on top of it to provide the interface capability to communicate with the app. So once you do this, you have a package here for a unit and then one for UI test in the project. To run it on Android, there's no extra things you need to do for Android projects. It just works with Android fine. For iOS, there is one extra step involved, and that is adding a component, the Test Cloud agent. So what you do is you take your iOS project, you add through the component store a Test Cloud agent, and then that will enable it to work. In fact, there's one other step, and all this, by the way, there's a really nice run-through on Xamarin side about how to do this. It's kind of a quick start helper that kind of helps you get through this process. In the app delegate of the iOS project, you do Xamarin cal-start, and that initiates the test process when it runs. Any questions so far? So just download up, do a project, take your project, or whatever, just create a NUnit test project, and go ahead and extend it with UITest or the component store, and that'll get you rolling. Obviously, you can do also in Visual Studio too, by the way. I just picked this because it was easier. So that's kind of the components that are involved. The setup for getting this to work and run happens in a test class. So when you create this project, you get this test class. And there are a few things that you do. Essentially, what it does is it attaches to your APKs and the app file for your various projects. So there's some setup involved where you tell the class where to go to pull it in. You add it, and then there's other configuration items here. So I mentioned that this particular CRM app uses the Google Maps, which is now part of the Google services. So you need to have an API account. I've probably gone through this before. And then if you've done this before, you know that it locks down access to the SHA-1 signature of the key store that signs the app. So you can specify, like if I have a particular key store I'm using to sign, you can make sure that that the test infrastructure uses that key store as well. So it's very important to do that, especially if you're pulling in from services that are expecting a particular signature for it. So this kind of setup is all part of this kind of setup here for it. And yeah, I mean, this is really the sample that you can pull from the internet, and it just talks about configuration for iOS and Android, setting your API key here and other setup items, supplying the path. When you run the project, it will install the APK or IPA to the device, execute the script off of the app after it's installed. Pretty straightforward. There's logic here to say if it's running locally or in a test cloud, it'll change behavior depending upon the environment it's in. You know, it's regular testing from there. You write your tests. You know, you indicate as such, and you go ahead and write them. I have a couple written here, and we can go through the syntax and the REPL thing in a few minutes. So that's basically it. So what I can do is I'll go ahead and start a Android test. I'm going to comment this guy out and this guy here, and I got Genymotion on here, and I think it'll work. And I'm going to run one test. I'll run the validate homepage. These guys out here real quick. And yeah. Press. Let me fire up the device real quick. It would help if I ran it, right? Little detail. You can do this on the Xamarin Android simulator. I've had issues on my environment getting it to work, but most all the demos you see are on the Android player. Press play. Click yes. It'll install the app. and run one test. So I scripted in this to add using the password. I'll show this to you in a minute. We'll go ahead and open it and then pop open a nice, interesting command line here called the read, evaluate, print loop. Have you guys seen a demo of the REPL in Test Cloud yet? This is something that Xamarin will show you a lot. And so you might ask, like, how do these tests work? Like, how do you connect to a button and click it and enter the name and do all the things you got to do as you simulate an end user? I mean, I don't know offhand the name of all these controls or what they are, how to run these queries. So the tool that is part of UITest is this read, evaluate, print loop, which you can specify in your test. And I did it here. And you can run it as part of your test. What it'll do then is give you an opportunity to look at what's going on in the app from UI perspective. So for example, I'm here on the maps page, and so I can do app.query. If I can spell query, where x dot do all, and you get a full output of all controls on the page. This is a small window. I'll blow this up a little bit. This is everything that Android is emitting for this particular page. So now I can get a handle on these through the text or the class or the ID, if an ID is presented. So then it's just like jQuery. You just find the attribute you're looking for, run a query, and then it comes back, and then you get a handle, and then you can click it or touch it or whatever you want to do. You can filter your query too. There's a whole host of things you can do on this. You know, I can do where, I don't know, x.text is, what am I on here? List. Hold on one sec. Oops. One second. I must have gotten out of it. Sorry about that. I'll run it again. Well, let me just redo it. So you can query and try to get the ID for elements on the page. You can also actually touch stuff too. So you can actually run like a click, and I'll do that in a second right here. So we can open or click on one of these items. So it's a really, really useful part, and this is basically how you start building your test. This is your starting point. You start a unit test, and you run the REPL. You find the things you want to test, and then you put a verb on it. So again, app query x where x text. There's my control. So now I can do app dot tap, and it tapped the list tab right there. So you can do this all day long. You can do map. Let's tap map, and there's map. So you can do it for any control. Just find it and go ahead and write using the REPL command. Use these queries. So I'll show you how we kind of integrate these queries into the test suite itself. I'll take a pause here. Forms seems to be pretty popular in this group, and we talked about it last time about forms. There are some issues with forms running UITest that you should be aware of once you get started with this. The first one is forms doesn't really pass back all the IDs you would expect for a lot of controls. So on the Android side, you're going to find yourself having to do, let me find the Android project. This guy, set style IDs. So you're going to need to do this for both Android and iOS. So be a little careful if you're using forms to make sure that you set up in your main activity or in your app delegate, or, if you're doing both, that you have this in here. Otherwise, you will have controls with no class IDs. You're going to have a hard time running queries to find them. You'll see them, but you won't be able to like, query for them because they'll just be null. So it's kind of a idiosyncrasy with forms you should be aware of when you write your test. It's not great, just one of those kind of things we all have to deal with right now with where forms is currently today. So anyway, once you set that, then you will get class IDs. And again, just to give you another view of the REPL, you can query on any of these attributes: label, the text, the class ID. So you can do both. You could say, well, I want a text view with a specific text in it, or you can make it be very complex. If you have a very complex UI, you can filter and manipulate the query however you'd like to do it. So that is, in a nutshell, the REPL. So it's a fundamental thing when using UITest you need to be aware of. You need to use this as your starting point to get to your UI and build your tests. Questions so far? So pretty straightforward.
Is there a tool that can actually generate those commands for us? The UI tool where it can actually record like the web tests that you have.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is there a tool that like can I like point here you're saying and then get like the output?
You can actually then record the whole test by just clicking.
Yeah, it's like a recorder. I don't think so. Has anybody else seen that? I haven't seen that. It'd be cool. Yeah, so I could just like click list and maybe it talks to this guy and it kind of records it and do a script. Yeah, it's a good idea.
I imagine it's too new for that.
Oh, come on, it's been out for a month. So yeah, you got to kind of go old school. So what I was doing last night when I was writing this, I was just sitting like in front of the TV, just kind of like querying and just recording all this stuff, and that's what you do. Structurally, in the test, this is kind of like what the Xamarin samples do, and I think it's a pretty decent model. By having you define an interface, so iOS queries. I'm sorry, where's my interface here? iScreen queries. So you define an interface of all the controls that your test is going to involve. So I just wrote this real quick, and this is what it's going to be. It's this is your structure of all your controls, just getters, and then the implementation is here, and this is what you'll find in your both Xamarin and iOS, and they might be different. iOS, queries might look very different than what you have for Android. That's okay because you've abstracted that away, and so your implementation details are all in here. So you have a big long list of stuff, and you'll go ahead and bake that into your test script. So not fun. This is not the enjoyable part of mobile development, is doing this stuff, but it's worth it once you spend the time to get all of your controls documented. Then you can go forward and start doing the fun part, which is kind of writing your tests. All right, so that is a basic test that we ran. It wasn't really a test, it was just kind of an intro to a test. And I'll go ahead and comment out the REPL and go through that. So that was the validate homepage test. Let's run the modify contact test. This is the funner one. Testing structure kind of follows the standard, the range, act, assert pattern is kind of, you can do however you prefer to do tests, but this is just kind of a suggested way to go. This doesn't have authentication. In fact, there's actually an issue on iOS right now getting these fields to work. But you kind of set up your test, and then you just run your test. So here I have a tapping the menu button to open the flyout menu. You can take a screenshot right there. So when you upload it to Test Cloud, you can actually see what it looks like when that particular action was taken. You can, what else do I have in here? Enter text. So if I want to manipulate a field, make a change, you can do an enter text command. You can take a screenshot, again, like I said, and then you can wait for stuff to complete. So if you're looking for performance information, you just want to wait until something's done, you can do wait for element call. And this is actually where if you were to do like a hybrid app, wait for element will take, it'll take an element from the DOM. So this will be like if you're doing web stuff and you want to look at how long it takes to load a page or how responsive a web page is, this is the way you would do that. So this is just kind of a basic test. So all this does is it goes to the contacts list, finds a contact named Bob contact item. Then I'll change the text to Bob test. And then I'm going to expect here that the result is Bob test in the screen after I click save and OK. And if that doesn't happen, then I will fail the test. So it's just kind of a basic standard test that you'd probably expect to have. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, just make sure I have the right guy picked. Mike, do I have the right guy? I do. So let's run this. Let's see how it looks. Oh, it's not playing. Play. So it'll pick contacts out. There's a delay for some reason where it decides to wait for a while before it clicks it. So it's, I don't know. It will eventually do it. Yes. Contacts list. Bob. I'm sure Android Player is way faster. Bob test, save. So says Bob, and indeed I failed the test because it did not update the contact name as expected. My test failed it. So there's something wrong with the app. I need to go figure out what happened. And on this particular one, the answer is, let's see, my suggestion here. This sample app does not implement on property changed, so for the new model, and so it doesn't do that. So to make that actually stay, you would just do this, and then it would stay. So let's pretend I fixed that because it takes forever to build this stuff. So I'll switch back to the test, and let's pretend we fixed that. That was beta code. That was not ready for prime time. This is ready for prime time. Because we're going to dominate the CRM world with this awesome app. And let's run it again with the fixed code, and you will see it pass successfully. So again, we could use a physical device. We could use any other emulator we want and just kind of run it. And I forgot this takes a little while, so I probably need to run this again. But it will work with the updated APK. What else am I missing? So anyway, you get results here. It's pretty straightforward. You can write as many tests as you want. It'll run them in serial. I have 3 tests in here that will upload to the cloud in a few minutes. So that's basically UI testing. Come on, Bob. Pass the test. Should have passed the test. Passed. Green. All right. So let's talk about any other questions about, this is a local UI testing process, basically. It works the exact same for iOS as it does for Android. There's really no difference other than just changing the configuration and running it on Android simulator. So it's the exact same experience each way. So, I mean, what this is, though, what I like about it is it's cross-platform. So it's the same test written once, implemented on both platforms through the queries that we looked at, and you just run the script and it'll work either way. So you have a single test developed for both platforms. That's really what it's all about. All right. So what do you do to get this thing running on someone else's phone in the cloud? How does that work? So let's switch over to Test Cloud. I showed a little bit of this during the last meeting. You know what? One other thing I did want to, well, I'll talk about at the end, but basically you get a test cloud account, you get an allotment of hours, and you can start your test. The way you do that is you click New Test Run, you tell Xamarin, what am I running? Am I running a Android or iOS? So you can say, well, I'm doing an Android app. You click it, and this is always the cool part, is where you get to kind of explore all the things you want to test with. So I might want to test with the market share on Android, Galaxy S3. You know, we have S4, S4, S3, don't want that. 4.1.2. I can filter by OS version, sort by OS version. I can look at tablets. I'm interested in 10.1, Galaxy Tab, flipping back to phone. You can pick all these out. Nexus 5. So you can pick your devices in the picker, and then you can go ahead and pick your options. And then what you'll get is essentially commands that you will run on either Mac or Windows to upload to Test Cloud and execute your test. So pretty straightforward, right? You just copy this guy, put in your terminal, and go ahead and run it and just replace it with the values. They give you your API key here. You supply the APK. You supply the DLL, your test DLL. Or if you're doing iOS, your IPA. Once you have your test done, you get a nice handy portal where you can see a lot of details about the test execution, or at least a high level. You can look at the test pass-fail over history over time. You can look at the memory usage and size of the apps, by physical size, and then memory as well, and look at your past tests. So as an example, let's take a look at this guy. This is a test that I ran on the edit side. You can then see for each test you run all the steps that I took. Remember, I was taking screenshots on the test. You can see each screenshot here for each device. You can blow it up and expand it. You can see details about the app. You can see its memory profile and CPU usage throughout the test to try to get a sense of how it's behaving during your test sequence. If you have an issue, I think I have an issue on the other device. In this case, for some reason, the 5 failed. It just didn't work. And if you can go to console, you'll see the output for the test. It didn't show an exception here, but I think it did in the test failure here, and something got host. So you do get output from the devices when they're run in case something bad happens to process those crashes, and you do get a log as well. Nice screenshot. So this is the last thing we saw before it failed. I actually have no idea why this one failed. It was working before, one of those things. So another example, rotation. So it's not just about clicking stuff. You can actually manipulate the device as well. So you can rotate it. In your test, you can also set the coordinates. So if you're doing something like mapping, you want to do routing, whatever, you can simulate where the device is. This is a kind of an interesting one. I mean, for those that, master detail, the fact that when Xamarin, this stays open when you do it in landscapes, you can find like UI issues just visually. It's not all tested. You can actually kind of see like, okay, that doesn't look quite right. I didn't know this would be fixed here when I rotated to landscape as an example, and then rotation back to portrait. So you basically, for your test, if you specify a screenshot, can see everything going on here. There's an interesting issue. This happens, I don't know, for me at least. Maybe there's something on my setup where it will not do using a password. It can't do more than one text field. I haven't seen that issue before. So probably hard to see, but this is the economic password on one line. So it fails the test. Pretty hard. So that is the portal, and there's another mode. So these are 4 actual test scripts that you write, that you upload. So you supply DLL, you supply APK or IPA. You can also run a different kind of test where it discovers your user interface and clicks every button. It creates a tree and has this whole algorithm. We'll go through and click all this stuff. So this is that particular mode running on iOS, and it's called a tour. And you know, I don't know how useful this actually is. It may be for certain kinds of UIs, but for this one, this is what Xamarin, you know, the Xamarin Test Cloud did. It clicked the map thing, and then it clicked Roy, and then it clicked some button and it started clicking other stuff and showing like all these things here. So for some interfaces or some apps, maybe this would make sense. But it's kind of like the discovery, where it'll just go ahead and click everything in Test Cloud, so you can see like all possible buttons being clicked to see if something explodes. Other things about Test Cloud, you can have other people involved, so I can add other users and invite them to have access to Test Cloud. So if you have other testers that you want to have in there looking at it, it's not just one account. You can allow other people access to see this. Android and iOS are separate in the portal, so you'll see two different series of tests here. As an example. So, and on this one, actually, Android fared pretty well. No failures, and it looked pretty good for all these various versions here. So, I suppose what I could do is I could just upload the test we wrote and do it. It'll run it, and it'll at least give you guys an impression of what it's like to execute this. So let me exit this. Go back to terminal here, and then I have a handy cheat sheet, and I'll just go ahead and I'll do the Android. You know what I want? I'll do the Android because it's a little bit faster. So like I said, you simply copy and paste. If you're using a key store that you really want to make sure that it's used because it's locked down to a Google Play service, you supply it here. By the way, you might ask from an IPA if you're doing an iOS. You can just use your developer, sign in as a developer, and then it'll work that way too. So you'll need to have like a distribution profile and thing like that. It'll work under developer signed IPA. So nothing earth-shaking there. It works. You run the submit and execute it. It'll do this, and you will see it uploading. If the IPA is already current and there's no changes, it'll just leave it alone, and then it'll go ahead and upload the new DLL. Since we made some changes to this through the comments, it'll go ahead and re-upload that. It'll enqueue the devices, and you wait for a little while. We'll see how long this one takes, but typically within 15 minutes or so, the test will run. Again, it depends on how many devices you pick and what's going on currently. I believe the SLA behind Test Cloud is what, like, you say 6 hours, Mike? Is that what they said? Yeah, like it never takes that long, but who knows? You know, this could explode in popularity and could become a situation where you got to kind of think about when you're running your test.
There is a high priority one that has a short.
Okay, I'm sure we have the highest priority here from Xamarin. I'm sure we're top of the queue. The CRM app waits for no one. So yeah, and you remember this one script I said. So it's really, I mean, it's a lot of setup. It takes some time to kind of like get it written and like get it all working, and you know, especially if you're doing both Android and iOS, you know, do the idiosyncrasies of that, and it takes a little bit of time if you're using forms to get through, you know, getting all the labels correct, setting your class IDs if you're going to use that to mark your controls. So it's like a little bit of work up front, but then over time, as you can imagine as you make changes, this is your test suite. It helps a lot because now you can repeatedly test this and make sure that we didn't break anything, and you have history on performance, memory, CPU to draw from. So you have you know, characteristics that you just have that much better understand how it behaves. And for those of us who do any Android work, it's critical to have that. It just can never have like all the devices around all the time. You know, Mike and I have been working on a project where just, you know, we just constantly run into issues on various versions of stuff. Mostly ML's phone is really the problem, but so it's a really, really useful tool. I do want to talk about price. How much is it? Xamarin like makes it look like it's like it's some kind of super expensive product. It's not cheap. I talked to Xamarin about this, and they are still very much committed and will announce a enthusiast or kind of prosumer pricing for this. So don't think like you have to shell out thousands of dollars to get access to Test Cloud. There is going to be a significantly less expensive version of Test Cloud for licensing that will be announced. They wouldn't tell me more than that, but they would say that it's ongoing. It will happen. It's just they just need to announce it. In general, they did say think around $5 per hour is essentially the cost, more or less. So call your rep, your local Xamarin retail representative. You can work with them. You can work with them, and if you are building something and you really want to get access to Test Cloud, I would contact them and see what we can work out. Because as you can imagine, it's a hugely beneficial tool to have. Also, everything I showed you today was in Xamarin Studio. You can run this in Visual Studio. In fact, I think at the conference they were running a alpha build of the integration where you could like right-click project, I think I saw, and ship it to Test Cloud. It was really cool, and I don't use the alpha channel at all, so it looked cool. So I think that it'll come. It's not really there right now, but knowing Xamarin, it will be improved or added. But you could run these upload scripts and stuff. You saw it's just a command prompt thing, so you can still run it from Windows. Yep. Have you guys worked with like Device Anywhere or any other cloud-hosted device stuff? So I'm curious to know people's thoughts about the differences between that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I got. That went pretty quick. So any questions or so about it? Anybody used it or?
Is it uploaded yet?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. No, for complete though. So it's not too bad. So I started that about 6 minutes ago. And you can interact with it before they're all done. So you'll see it spinning here, and then while that last one completes, you can see the other test results. So of course it's perfect. Why would it not be perfect? Isn't that beautiful? Usually you see a couple drop out. Well, not on this one, but
No, the last one's gonna fail this stage.
totally will. They have like what's the store app I think is in here, so you can check that one out and see, just kind of mess around and see how it looks on different ones. So this one did fail. Yeah, this has a bit more of a narrative on it. I think you can look at. Yeah, totally didn't work. So, Mal, you had a question?
I was just wondering, like when you run those tests locally, like when you run it in the cloud, you get all of the nice UI, the statistic, dashboard, and everything. When you run it locally, is there still any tool that will visualize those results, or do you have to like look into the output?
Yeah, it's old school. This is what you get. You just get a green. Okay, so if there are any other questions, I mean, that's pretty much all I have. I know I probably went quicker than at 7 o'clock. So we did have a thought about maybe talking about some of the current events in mobile since we last met. .NET was open source and stuff like that. Did anyone have any things they wanted to?
I just wanted to ask one question. At the conference, they implied that you could use Test Cloud to test any app, even if it wasn't developed using Xamarin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you upload an IP or APK, so whatever. It's not specific. Yeah, it's not a C# .NET thing. It's just the package. So yeah, there's nothing stopping you from taking any one of those and running them. I think that they were saying you just find whatever you got and just put it up there. So
if anyone wants to test the Facebook app,
yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Yeah, that's what we can do now. If anyone wants to test this stuff, we could probably do it here. I got like 89 hours left. So we all got this. This was the big prize for attending the conference. Was they gave conference attendees 100 hours. So I burned you know, 7 or 8 hours in this, just messing around. So that's what I do. Large in Test Cloud. So great. So I think that is good for me.
Any more questions?
I do not believe there's a free trial. I think you have to sign up and create an account for it. The question was if there's a free trial for Test Cloud now. But there is a free trial for Hockey app.
Yeah, that may change. Who knows? And I'm sure if you contact our salespeople, that they'll that you might be able to negotiate a free limited trial, something in a few hours, figure out if it's what you want.
Yep. So, well, good. So hopefully you guys got a chance to see how it works. It's really what the experience is, kind of end to end, and how to build it out. It adds a lot of value to projects, especially if you're doing a lot of devices and you got various profiles of people. You're never going to have them all in front of you. We feel it's very valuable to have. It's something that everyone should use if you're building anything of reasonable complexity. It's not difficult. It's just basic, like unit testing you normally would do. It's more at the UI level. You find elements of the UI, you query, perform actions, you expect results. You can check for performance. You can check for speed. You can do all the things that you'd want to do. There are a few limitations, like you can't take a picture or close the app and restart it. But it's good enough to get you, probably, depending upon your app, a very large percentage of everything you tested. And again, the value of it over time, to be able to run these tests on a regular basis so that when you do make a change, you can trace it to a particular point in time, make sure you have all the device coverage that you want. Portal is good. It helps you see by market what is out there, and helps you kind of make decisions on what kinds of devices you should be using to test with. So that's also fairly valuable to have. So if you want to take, the top by market share, the top, X number of phones, or whatever.
There's also that choose in the top right drop down where you usually have to choose.
Oh yeah, there's like a template too. It's like, give me the top 20. Here they are.
Does it do any comparisons to benchmarks saying
Oh.
your code compared to other code really sucks on this?
It doesn't, but that'd be great to have, wouldn't it? Your app is using 200 meg of RAM. Most apps don't.
Yeah. When you said speed, I don't know relative speed.
Yeah.
It might be fast to me, but
Yeah. That's good. But they would have the data, so it'd be pretty valuable to have. It'd be good feedback for them. Okay, well, do we want to do the drawing?
We'll talk about some of the things. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Travis.
Sure.